I'm Glenn Arbery, president of Wyoming Catholic College. Since December, when I gave a talk about poetry in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I've been thinking it would be a good thing to have a daily blog simply to honor poetry and to give poets a chance to be heard in this age of ours when most people don't pick up a volume of poetry or read a poem except by accident if they're flipping through a magazine like First Things. It struck me that poetry might be exactly what we need in this hour, this strange time of isolation, of distance that everybody has from everybody else when we can't even go to church. But the poetry that exists in our tradition and that's still being written today might speak to us in these days in ways that we might not ordinarily let it. I'm reminded of the great teacher I had at the University of Dallas, Louise Cowan, who lost her eyesight in her 40s for 6 months. She had been given a thyroid medicine, which was still in the experimental stages in those days. And it distorted her sight for the rest of her life. But for those 6 months, it took her sight away entirely. And when she was in that condition where her life, as she had known it, she was an artist, had been taken from her, she found herself having recourse to the poetry that she had memorized. She would go over poem after poem. Sometimes she hadn't memorized them completely or accurately. And she would get to a certain place in a certain line. And the word that would fit there metrically might not be the actual word that the poet used. So as she remembered the poems and teased them out and tried to recreate them, she came to a deeper and deeper understanding of what those poems were all about. And they gave her great consolation. She said the greatest consolation she had during those days was the recitation of those poems, and particularly her memory of the Psalms, which we are being urged these days to try to memorize for ourselves. To have them at heart, by heart, is a consolation to our very nature. We are in the image and likeness of the Logos himself, the Word of God, the Son who is in his very being related to the depth and power of language. I'm going to be taking a poem a day for the next few weeks, maybe longer, we'll see, and trying to find in these poems something of their genius, something that will give us a new way of conceiving ourselves and our situation. And these aren't going to be poems of plague. They're going to be poems written for all kinds of different occasions, different emotions. But I think they should give us a range of things to think about.